Hello everyone! I'm here with my son Jacob today, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about what the setting of a story is before we read our story today. Jacob, what is the setting of a story?
The setting of a story means where it takes place.
Yeah, where it takes place. Jacob, what setting are we in right now?
The setting we're in our backyard.
We're in our backyard. We're in a garden. There's plants around, there's birds chirping. We can feel the fresh air, right? That's the setting we're in right now. And the setting of the story we're going to read to you today is quite similar. You'll see. The story I'm going to read is called The Curious Garden. Think about that word curious for a minute. What does that mean when you're curious about something? It might mean that you're wondering or you're interested in something. And I love the title of this book because in this book, it's not a person that's curious. It's the curious garden. So let's find out what that means. And while I'm reading today, I want you to think about what is the setting in this story, okay? The Curious Garden is by Peter Brown. The Curious Garden. Whoa, can you hear those birds chirping in the background? There was once a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors. As you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. Look at the setting right now in this story. It's a city, but there's no trees, no gardens anywhere. Let's wait and see if the setting changes in this book. However, there was one boy who loved being outside, even on drizzly days. While everyone else stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through his neighborhood. There's Liam. It was on one such morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to some tracks. The railway had stopped working ages ago, and since Liam had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. Liam's curious. What is up there on those tracks? Liam ran up the stairs, pushed open the door, and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. Can you see it there? Wildflowers and plants were the last thing he had expected to find up there, but when he took a closer look, it became clear that the plants were dying. They needed a gardener. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help. So he returned to the railway the very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems. But the plants patiently waited while Liam found better ways of gardening. Look what he's doing in this page. You see, he's singing to the plants. As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and the plants began to feel like a real garden. Can you see it getting bigger? There he is with his watering can, giving it a drink. Most gardens stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It wanted to explore. Oh, the tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up farther and farther down the tracks and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. So the garden is starting to explore this railway here. Over the next few months, Liam and the Curious Garden explored every corner of the railway. Wow, look how the setting is starting to change. Look, in the city, I'm starting to see some plants in the setting, some green. Wow. There's Liam enjoying some of the flowers that sprouted up in one corner of the railway. Here's another. After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. See how it's all covered in snow? Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season, and for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit the plants. Everything's covered in snow. Look, there's Liam, just wondering, how's my garden doing under all that snow? Rather than waste his winter worrying about the garden, Liam spent it preparing for spring. After 3 cold months, the snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. Let's see what he's got there. He's got a shovel, he's got a book about flowers, he's got a rake and a watering can. He's got an outfit that shows he is ready to get to work as a real gardener. Winter had taken its toll on the garden. But thanks to Liam's planning, his handy new tools, and a little help from the sun, the plants soon awoke from their winter sleep. Oh, wow, he must have been worried when he saw it looking like this. But he gave it some water, some song, and some love, and look, it's already springing back to life. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and mosses set out first. They popped up farther and farther from the railway and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. I love to see these plants creeping down now. They're curious what's under the railway. The garden was especially curious about old, forgotten things. Look where some of that garden popped up. In an old car, in the cracks of a sidewalk, coming through a window. A few plants popped up where they didn't belong. Look at this stop sign. Uh-oh. Look at this fire hydrant. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. There's one left on a doorstep. And look, Liam's just dumping one here on this little patch of dirt. But the most surprising things that popped up were the new gardeners. Look on all these rooftops. Everyone is starting to plant gardens just like Liam, and here's all the new gardeners lining up to help. Wow, the setting is really starting to change. I remember in the beginning of the story, we couldn't see anything green growing in this city. There's gardens on steps. There's someone having a picnic in the garden. There's gardens leading right up to the water. I love this picture. Look, there's a tree growing up between these two very tall buildings. And look up here on the top. They're pruning their gardens to look like animals. Everywhere things are growing. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed. But of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it all began. So this is many years later. There's Liam. He's older now. And I'm guessing this is Liam's son and his wife and his daughter, and they're all working together. Remember how small this little plant was in the beginning of the book? And look now, it's a big tree. The end. So let's take a look back at the beginning on what the setting looked like at first. And then this city transformed into a very different looking setting full of plants and gardens. Whatever story you read with your family today, I want you to look carefully at the pictures and try and figure out what's the setting in that story. Is it in the ocean? Is it set in a jungle? Is it in someone's house? And talk about the setting with your family. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.